Hello and welcome to another episode of Women's Health and Vitality Unleashed. I am your host, Coach Dr. Ann Hester, double board certified physician in internal medicine and lifestyle medicine, and I am the founder of the PatientWorld.net platform, where you can go to sign up for on-demand courses taught by experts from around the world. So today I am very pleased to have a special guest, and I would like her to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Belinda. I live in the UK. I'm a professional musician and I'm a mindfulness teacher. I have a background in teaching across the board, primary school, teaching English abroad. I now work in mental health and I've been teaching mindfulness alongside of that as well.
Okay. So there are a lot of misconceptions about mindfulness. Can you give us your take on that and how you define mindfulness?
Yeah, there's there are a lot. And I have a few things to say on this. I really like the question. So, firstly, it's assumed about the cognitive emphasis to it all because of the word mind, and and it goes along with the kind of dilutions that have happened, over the decades, and the way that everyone's jumped on the bandwagon with it. But I really do hear that a lot. Whereas, in fact, I mean, as we know, even separating the mind and body is, in the first place, is a misconception because you cannot treat one without treating the other. Um, so the body is really the foundational anchor in mindfulness. It always was, and that's how it started off. And even if we go to the some of the teachings, we have the contemplations of the body within mindfulness, and as in one of them is in terms of the elements: earth, air, water, fire. And the earth element is sort of so fundamental to trauma healing, somatic modalities. We always come back to that grounding. We always have to listen to the body, all of the wisdoms in the body. So the cognitive emphasis is taken a bit strongly, I think. Secondly, to say that things like compassion practice is a separate thing to mindfulness. And again, it reflects dilutions over the centuries. People putting things into boxes now these days. And I've literally heard it referred to by so-called experts that I heard someone saying the other day, what's going to be the next biggest thing after mindfulness is going to be compassion.
I hope
Whereas
so.
all the compassion practices were there all along. I've learned that through mindfulness. And the same with gratitude, the same with abundance. It was all there. It shouldn't be split up. And another big one is that mindfulness is just equal to other modalities out there. So we have CBT, we have ACT, any number of acronyms, whereas it actually underpins these modalities, and that they're built on that foundation of awareness. So uh, you hear phrases like, well, not every strategy is for everyone, not everything is for everyone. Well, it's not a strategy. It's awareness training is far more fundamental than that. And I think when it comes to lasting change, integration of trauma, transformation, post-traumatic growth, whatever we want to call it, I don't think we can start with the top down. I don't think we can be putting things in at the top for it to take shape properly or meaningfully. It starts with this strong foundational basis of awareness. And I heard an analogy the other day, which I quite liked, which was of when a seed lands in a soil, if it's a healthy soil, if it's a healthy, cultivated practice, then the seed takes root so much more effectively, which is a bit like insights in our life. And we can gain insights at different times through stillness, through meditation, or any stillness practice. But they can just be temporary, they can just be blown away by the wind or the rain if they aren't firmly rooted in that deep awareness. So, and I would argue quite strongly that you can't substitute this real solid training and awareness, which is what mindfulness is. And if you don't mind, I have one more.
Certainly.
This is quite a long answer. Um, but it's the byproducts that can happen as a result of mindfulness and mindfulness meditation. It's that these are seen as the main, as the purpose or the goal. And aside from it being essentially non-attachment to outcome from the start, there isn't a purpose or a goal. But these byproducts, they happen, calm, focus, productivity, they may or may not happen, may not play out like that as a result of meditating. I say meditating, it's strongly supports mindfulness practice, but it's a part of how it all can be taught. So there are physiological reasons as to why these things occur in the body. I mean, if we meditate for a short while, our systems get told that they can rest for a bit, so we feel calmer. It might not always happen, but these are byproducts which the scope of awareness is so much more than that, and it actually informs how we navigate every aspect of life and show up potentially in each moment. So it's a lot more than the benefits that may or may not come.
I was very interested. I was very surprised to learn the depth of mindfulness when I was preparing for my board examination in lifestyle medicine. I read about how mindfulness can actually help rewire the brain. And that was shocking, to me, that what a lot of people would consider, you know, soft, soft skills, soft, techniques can have a profound impact on a person's life, not just emotionally, but physiologically. So
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
that's really profound.
Yeah, because it's strengthening the prefrontal cortex, so there's actually physiological change happening there.
Yes. So, what is the aim of what you're currently doing? Do you-
Well, it links quite closely to a lot of those misconceptions, because I really am quite hungry to put back some of the wholeness that I've experienced and put back the integrity into mindfulness teaching. I have quite an appetite to do that. And these misconceptions, I've alluded to some of them. And also I have this statement: I help people find their creative inner voice. And I mean, what does this mean? And one way to explain it, I mean, there are so many definitions floating around about mindfulness these days. And one that really stuck with me several years ago on a silent 5-day retreat, of which I've done several, I heard it described as a person finding their own way. So a person finding their own path, their own unique path through life, which is a bit bigger than what it sounds maybe, because quite often they can feel like there isn't a way. How are we going to creatively be in the world? And for me, it very deeply resonates in music as my innate musical voice, which I rediscovered through this work. For someone else, it could be a completely different thing. But actually, just finding a way to be sometimes is the creative voice. The intuition is the creative voice when it cannot feel like there is one. So it's a big thing.
I agree. Creativity, can take so many different forms. My mechanisms are not yours, but I have heard you play. I've watched some of your clips, and you play beautifully. It's very calming. It's very peaceful. So it's easy to see how your music is taking you to that place, a different place, the calm, the beauty of it. It's really great. I really enjoyed listening to your clip.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's the voice, it's my voice. So it's an empowering thing to use the voice, very healing thing. And I think I do that best through music. It's better than my actual voice. So we all have we all have different ways of doing that, obviously.
Absolutely. So, how did you come to mindfulness?
Okay. So, well, there are two facets of answering this. How I came to it, as in the route I took, but also the place I was in, which, without getting into it too deeply here, um, it's very difficult to encapsulate in a single answer. I'll do my best, but on the surface, it was chronic pain, um, and fellow back sufferers will understand that when you have a back that just goes and you're debilitated for several days, you can't walk, you can't do anything, um, and various other pain in my body and diagnoses of this and that. With hindsight, I was carrying significant heavy things which had got suppressed because they had to, and because part of getting by in daily life is suppressing things until it's safe enough for them to emerge, as we know. So, um, just to very briefly summarize the three areas that were in my system, I had some early life trauma that happened. I wasn't aware of the full impact of it until recently. I had a condition in my early adulthood up until, well, it's been all of the fertile years. It's called adenomyosis, and the way it manifested was a great deal of pain when it came to intimacy and relationships. So that wasn't really something available to me without a lot of pain. And but what's important about this is the impact it had. It caused so much rejection. It caused rejection from every relationship. And with hindsight, it didn't make a man feel great about themselves, maybe, but it's only how this has been reframed. I've been able to see it as that. It was all couched in a lot of shame. It was the feeling of separation, of that, well, I have something really different about me, and I can't explain it I can't explain it to you or myself. I'm expected to sort of justify it and feel ashamed, but yet I have to keep really quiet because it's not talked about, and I don't want to be the one to talk about it. So, um, as far as I know, it's a common condition, but it's not talked about. So, and I think I've realised the impact of this condition recently because, at the time I was working as a primary school teacher, and everybody was having children, everybody was going off having children, and I was covering maternity leaves mostly. And it was just assumed that you'd have a partner and have children, and that was the course of things. And people kind of celebrated these connections and they multiplied. But I just felt increasingly isolated, and as though there was something, just this very deep sense of something really wrong with me, that was never explained, and it was never treated as anything other than had to be fixed or changed, and it couldn't be fixed or changed. So it was the way it was being met, I believe, looking back on it all, that was actually causing me the problem, by society and just by people in conversation. So there was a lot of isolation there. And as it was unfolding, I didn't know what was happening. I just thought, is this horrible problem always going to be here for me? I know. And then the third thing I mentioned, three things. The third thing was that my dad was always ill since I was quite young. He was diagnosed when I was 16 with MS. And I really took this in on a deep level. I've always been an HSP, highly sensitive person. So I kind of took it in on a somatic level, and how that has played out in the chronic pain and everything. But yeah, my mum became very ill in the last 2 years, 18 months of his life, and they sadly both died 5 years ago, and they died within 2 weeks. Mum died a day after my dad's funeral, so it's very shocking and traumatic. And it was only after that the sort of the early life trauma began to get unpacked, and also, I would say, integrated and reframed through mindfulness, through this really deep work of mindfulness. And I think I said before that things don't really surface until they have the space. It's safe enough for them to surface. So I think that's what happened. But the other part of the answer to the question of how I came to it was I started with MBSR, which stands for mindfulness based stress reduction, in the pain clinic of the hospital, which I've been referred to. And it was a very cursory mention. It was barely mentioned, but out of all the things they said that day, I just had a sense of, well, this is something to look into further. And I did. And initially, I was incredibly self motivated. I would do long meditations, 45 minutes each, of this 8-week program of MBSR. I then went on to do it formally. And I was pretty sort of driven with it because I was in such a shadow of a person. I think at this time, I looking back on it, it wasn't really a choice. It was more of a lifeline. I think that mindfulness was the only thing big enough to hold what I came to it with. But it's just to say, I started with MBSR. I did some formal courses following that, a couple of years, and then various different trainings, culminating in the teacher training in 2018. And through doing all this, delving into it, and it's deepened so much beyond the MBSR, which is actually fairly divorced from the context of the original teachings. So the scope and the meaning and the depth of it has proliferated for me since then, and it's an ever deepening journey. So yeah, hopefully that answers.
Yes, it does. So I do have one more question for you before we wrap up. Can you speak a little bit about the significance of music in your journey?
Yeah. So I took to music very early on. I felt like it was a natural voice and a kind of an affinity. And the voice got cut down to do with dynamics and family dynamics, different rates of progress, concerns about rivalry and that kind of thing. Nothing intentional in it, I never believed. But the thing was, the voice was cut down. And the message that my subconscious took about that was that it's not okay to show up as me. And which I think is very common, actually. Maybe not so much these days, but in the 70s, it was a common thing that we couldn't show up as ourselves quite a lot. So I learned the reason as a teenager, but anyway, I didn't understand up until then really why it had been taken away. So I've not given the time and attention to music in my life that I would have perhaps done as the natural course of things. Um, and actually, because of all that shame, because of all that early sense of shame of not showing up as me, although I've always been a musician, it comes naturally. I haven't put the training and the time into it. I've always done other careers, but it's always there. It's still always there for me as something that I can express myself through. But I never would have thought to say it or tell people until recent years and until the work of mindfulness, which has reframed it, because I now feel it's something to be proud of and to show the world and to offer and to give people. I love to reach people with it. I love people to hear it. Um, so, and they love it. They say they love it. So
It's
it's
beautiful.
win-win.
Absolutely beautiful.
But I think before it was always couched under that umbrella of shame that I never would have thought to say I was a musician. And it's just been reframed. Everything has been reframed through mindfulness.
Sounds like it's been a very positive thing. I can just speak for what I listen to. Your music is beautiful, it's soothing, it's relaxing, and at the end of a stressful day, even though I can't play worth the thing, just listening to music like the music that you play, that's enough to just take me to another place and just be calming and relaxing. So it's wonderful that you can share something that means so important to you with other people who could benefit from it.
I'm so glad you heard it and you had that experience with it. Thank you
Thank
for
you for
listening.
sharing it with me. So, how do you want people to reach out to you so they can learn more about what you do?
So I have a website which is called Heart Mind Breathe altogether, heartmindbreathe.com. So that's just the 3 words: heart, mind, and breathe. And I do offer a course of 7 weeks length, and we cover the main pillars of mindfulness in terms of we go into the body, the senses, the thoughts, the emotions, compassion. So it's a grounding in the pillars of mindfulness. And I also write. Writing is another passion of mine. So I write blogs, and I find the practice of doing that empowering. And I hope reading my blogs is empowering for people and inspiring to them. And just to say, to hear my music, it's a separate platform. It's on Instagram. It's at Cello Belinda. So cellos without an H. It's CELLO at Cello Belinda.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so very much for sharing this really valuable information. And I hope a lot of people reach out to you and listen to your music and learn more about what you do. And thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Anne.
Okay. Have a blessed day. Bye bye.
You too.